Okay, so before we get into the prompts and get into all the stuff that we're going to do to be these amazing teachers, save ourselves time, and help our students be prepared and differentiate in our classroom, I think it's important to discuss what we like to call the elephant in the room. And that is we need to talk about cheating. Because whenever I bring up ChatGPT, these teachers are like, well, them kids just use it to cheat in my class. Yeah, they will, because they are young people, and a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, not talking about the Hermione Grangers in class who want to do their best and learn, but a lot of the students in your class just want to be done. They want to be done with whatever it is they got to do so they can go play their little Fortnite or Call of Duty or Madden or whatever it is, or go hang out or watch Netflix or play on TikTok or Snapchat. They want to do the thing that they like because they are young people, and that's just how young people are. This is not new. Kids aren't worse. It's just, they've always been this way. It's just back in the day, they didn't have access to all these cool things that these young people have now. Okay. So don't, like, even though kids will want to use this to cheat, it is part of our job to help communicate clearly with them what is cheating and what is not. So I was speaking at a college the other day, and I was talking to them about this, and they were about to create a new policy. And I said, yes, it's important to have an overall policy, and I gave them some tips on what to have in there. But for your classroom, one of the best things you can do as a teacher is clearly communicate with your students on what is allowed and what is not. And this is not like, oh, I'm going to say it once the first day with the syllabus. You got to repeat it clearly and often. You have to repeat it based on every assignment you can. Whenever you create an assignment, you send it to them, just say, hey guys, don't use any AI tools for this. Just like you might say, don't Google this or don't use Wikipedia. Whenever you're using these tools, you have to be clear with students. Clearly communicate often, okay? Real quick, and if you've got if you're doing the masterclass on the honor roll, tarveracademy.com/honor roll, or maybe you're in this live stream of this for the workshop. Here's what I would love, and you can put it in the chat or you can write it in your notes. I'm going to give you a scenario, and I want to know if you consider this to be cheating, okay? So for the first one, all right, first scenario, let's say the assignment was for your students to write a 500-word essay on the influence of the Norman invasion on the English language, okay? You want them to write a paper on this. They take it, they leave class, they go into ChatGPT, they type this, it writes the paper for them, and then they copy paste that and submit it as their assignment. Let me know in the chat, say yes or no if you think that's cheating. If you think it's cheating, say yes, it's cheating, or yes. And if you say no, say no. Okay? My personal opinion, and again, it's okay for us to differ on what our thoughts are for all this. It's okay to have different opinions. I would think that is cheating. I would consider that cheating because if my learning goal was for them to understand how the influence of Norman invasion impacted the English language, they didn't learn that because they just copied my question, pasted it, and submitted it. That is not good. That is not what we want, okay? That's called cheating, all right? Now, how about this? Let's say this, and I want your opinion if this is cheating or not. They took that assignment, the same assignment, and they went to ChatGPT, and they said, I have to write a 500-word essay on blah, blah, blah. Please bullet point the key information that I need to know to be able to write this paper. It bullet points it. It goes in and finds the bullet points of it. And then I go do the research. I go find books or articles or websites, peer-reviewed things, whatever it is. I go in and find them. Peer-reviewed. I don't know what peer-reviewed this is. This is from a few minutes ago. English language, the Norman invasion. So they go in and they take it and they build it out. They write it. How many of you in the chat or in your notes would think this is cheating? I'm guessing we may have a little more mixed. There might be some yeses that's cheating, some no that's not cheating. Now, if you have time, if you're in the chat, you can go in and say, here's why I think it's cheating. Here's why I think it is. I personally think you have to step back and look at the learning goals. If the learning goals, I did this talk in Indiana, and I showed them this, and I had them raise their hand. Everyone in the room, no one in the room raised their hand and said it was cheating, except for 2 women off to the side. They raised their hand and said it's cheating. And I was like, hey, it's your class, it's your opinion. What makes you think this is cheating? And they said, we're English teachers and we want them to learn to build their own outlines. And I was like, exactly. For those assignments or for those classes, you're trying to teach them that part of the learning goals are to build an outline. You want them to be able to do this on their own and build that structure. Then that is not allowed. You need to clearly communicate what's allowed and what is not. You have to be clear on it. The more you over communicate, the better off your students are going to be with regards to what is allowed and what is not. Okay? Now, let's say this. Let's say they write their paper. So I'm going to go into doc.new and I'm going to have, let's see, I'm going to get my paper. So I'm going to have to create a document. Oh, no, we don't want that. Help me write. I'm going to have it write our 500-word essay. That way ChatGPT doesn't grade itself. But let's say the student wrote this paper on their own. Okay, so they wrote their paper, and then they went to ChatGPT, and they said, please correct all of my grammatical errors. And then they pasted their paper, and it went and corrected them. Yes or no, is that cheating? Here's the thing. Maybe. It depends on if you want them to learn to go through and do it. If not, you're pretty much talking about Grammarly, right? That's Grammarly will correct. And a lot of teachers, like I remember in my doctoral classes, they made me pay for Grammarly to do my dissertation because they wanted to correct my stuff. But I bet if I had ChatGPT go in, I don't know what they would have thought. Thankfully, I finished my dissertation before ChatGPT came out because it would have, I say that thankfully, it would have helped. It would have helped me because I'll tell you, give you an example, okay? Yeah, some people may cheat. There's going to be, for the next several decades, there's going to be people that make zeros on their dissertations because it's going to be found out later it was written by AI. However, they're going to have to develop a better way to catch them, which I'm going to talk about in a second. I was speaking at this school in Oklahoma, and I got done speaking. I was showing them AI stuff, and I had someone come up to me, and she was saying, hey, I love your talk. She said, I'm actually working on my dissertation. And she said, I'm at a point where I'm not, like, she had reached a point in her writing where she was like ended a paragraph and then she's trying to figure out what to talk about next. And she was stuck. She had, I don't know if it was writer's block or she had run out of ideas. She didn't know how to link to the next thing. And she was like, what do you think I should, how do you think and I said, are you pretty much asking me how you can use this to help, but without it being cheating? She goes, exactly. I said, first off, whatever I'm going to tell you, you need to check with your advisor and ask them if it's okay if you do this, okay? I said, but what I usually recommend is you go in, you tell them what you're working on, and then you go tell them, here's the last 3 paragraphs of what I've written. Based on the flow of those, can you bullet point for me what my 3 potential things I could talk about next are? One thing, whenever it writes it for you, that's where I feel like a lot of people get in trouble. But when it bullet points ideas and thoughts and helps you brainstorm, I feel like that is much less troublesome than having it go in and just do the paper for you. So that was my advice to her, but I also said check with her advisor. You need to open up a dialogue, a chain of communication with your students on what is allowed and what is not, or else they are going to mess up. They are going to have issues because they are not always going to have the clearest picture of what's allowed and what's not. So right here, and again, not talking about it, like, oh, if I don't talk about it, they won't use it. Guess what? They're using it, okay? Like, they know about it. They just, some of them are scared that they're going to get caught cheating, and some of them are like, hey, I don't care. I just want to get this thing done and be out of there. And a lot of them, the best ones at it, you'll never catch them. Even if you have some new generator, some new website, there is not, from my experience, there's not a website that is good enough to just say, hey, I'm giving you a 0 because you had 40% here or this much here. Like somebody dropped the Old Testament in there. It said that, or they dropped Genesis in there from the Bible and they said, oh, yep, it was AI. Like these things, these tools are going to keep getting better. And then AI is going to, like ChatGPT is going to get, like the students are always trying to one up whatever technology is going to catch them cheating. Okay. Whenever I talk to teachers and students about what's allowed and what's not, I said, yes, it depends on whatever your policies are. I said, but an easy way to look at this is if it is acting as an assistant, that's usually okay. But if it's acting as a replacement, that is usually bad. Assistant's good, replacement's bad. Just like with YouTube, YouTube videos. I think if you use those as an assistant to your teaching, it can be really helpful. But if, I had a teacher I worked with and I told him I sometimes would play a YouTube video of me teaching in class, and then I would walk around and help students individually. So it's like I had a co-teacher, And believe it or not, I used to get off track some when I was teaching. So it also helped us stay on time. Well, he started recording himself doing his full lessons after school, and then he would just play it, and he'd play on his computer all day, and he just let them watch it. That's a replacement for you, not an assistant. I think it was okay what I was doing, and also I didn't get in trouble for it, so I think it was okay. I was also walking around helping students individually on problems while video me taught. Assistant good, replacement bad. Here's a screenshot from one of my old YouTube videos. And one of the cool things about making YouTube videos for a long time is you can go back and regret your hair choices, because like, what was I doing? Like, seriously, it's like I walked into the barber and I was like, hey man, give me the druggy scarecrow. And he was like, I got you, fam. That's terrible, Tyler. I used to get 2 haircuts a year to save money. Teaching salaries. Am I right? Am I right? So real quick before we move in, we're about to jump in and start doing some prompts. But as we continue to do these prompts, keep in mind, if I say a prompt or do this or do that, if it does not work for your class or for an assignment, don't do it. You have to clearly communicate with students what is allowed and what's not. And so I think that one of the most important things that we can do as educators is be open with our students about why it is not okay and why it is. Now, are some going to still cheat? Yes. Like, cheating's been around since kids could like look over a kid's shoulder, and like since we had necks and we could look around and see what they're writing and write it in. Cheating's been around for a while, okay? Before we move on to the next section, I want to give you a resource, and I'll probably have a link below. If not, I'm going to show you how to get it. tarveracademy.com/resources, and then once you put your email in, you can get to it. Again, I should have it linked somewhere, but if not, you can go in and get it from tarveracademy.com/resources. Go here to ChatGPT prompts, and it is under Classroom AI Policy Example. Classroom AI Policy Example. Now, you can go in and hit File, make a copy, and then you can like delete my name, put your name, and adjust it. Okay, you can clean it up, make it exactly what you want. But the reason I'm showing you this is there's 2 phrases that I really like when it comes to helping catch students using ChatGPT to cheat. Okay, so the first one is all usage of AI programs in this class, and I highlighted it, requires prior approval from the teacher. Requires a prior approval from the teacher. I put this in here because by putting this in, that means students have to ask you before they use any AI, any program, any website. And the reason is they can't just say, well, I didn't know you didn't say it. Yeah, we might forget on some assignments, but if you address this clearly and often that they have to check with you, that excuse is out the window because it's in your policies. They have to check with you first, okay? And then you can pick whether it is helpful or hurtful to the assignment. You are still guiding that process of learning. And this is the other phrase. Any assessment and or assignment is subject to a verbal review with the teacher. Any assessment and or assignment is subject to a verbal review with the teacher. The reason I like this is because it allows you, the teacher in the class, if a student comes in and you think they use AI and you're like, hey, all right, class, get started on this. Little Johnny, can I talk to you for a second? You go in the hall and you're like, hey, on your paper, that was really good. Like, I couldn't have written something that good. That was very, very good, okay? And they're like, thanks so much. And you're like, okay, did you use ChatGPT or any type of program or AI to write that paper? And the kid will be like, hopefully they tell the truth, but if not, they're like, nope, that was all me. And you're like, you wrote that paper by yourself. Yep, all me. Just read the book and wrote it. Okay. With this rule that you can have a verbal follow-up, that means you can have that kid's paper, and if they keep denying that they used AI, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your paper because according to the policy, I can do a verbal follow-up. And you ask them questions about the paper that they supposedly wrote. And if they cannot answer any question about their own paper, you can safely assume they cheated. Now, from there, once they can't answer any questions based on it, then what you can do is you can give them a 0, you can give them a 50, you can do whatever it is you want. Or what I recommend is you say, okay, little Johnny, you can't answer one thing from the paper you supposedly wrote, but you're still saying you wrote it. Yup, I did. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go back in class, and while we're working, you're going to sit in the back, and you're going to do this exact same assignment. They write the exact same paper, that you just wrote all by yourself, and you're going to write that paper, and then I'm going to grade that. And they write it by hand on paper with their computer closed. And whatever they get, they get. They don't throw a fit. That's the way I would like to handle this stuff personally, if I think a student is cheating, because I feel like it's the most accurate representation of what they actually learned. Because Turnitin, you can use Turnitin.com, you can use GPT-0, you can use any of these platforms. However, I don't feel like they are reliable enough right now to give a kid a 0 or not. So that's my opinion. Again, it's your class, your school. You do whatever you think is best, but that's the best suggestion I have. Now, I do want to give you, I want to give you one or two things. Actually, I'm going to give you one now because I want to give you the other one later. I'll give you one little extension you can get, and it's called Revision History Chrome extension. So, and if I don't forget, I'll have it linked. If not, if somebody wants to get the link and throw it in there, make it easy for everybody. But it's Revision History. I already have it on here, so it looks like this, a little pin, unless they change it. And then I'm going to go turn it on. Where's Revision History? Okay, open a Google Doc. So, let's see. So I'm going to say bit.ly/gtarver. Okay, so I'm trying to find a Google Doc that I have that I can use this on. So this is a Chrome extension that is connected to Google Docs that can help you figure out if a student, you can use context clues to figure out if a student wrote something in Google Docs on their own. So once you turn it on, again, called Revision History, it's a Chrome extension. It has this little tan bar right here. And with this, I can see the history of this document. Now up here, y'all see this little time thing? That's called version history. You can already see that, and it shows you like when somebody worked on something. I kind of like this better, this Chrome extension better, because I can see how many deletions, how many large copy pastes, because if somebody copy pasted their whole thing, like if they spent 30 seconds in their document and then they submitted it, that means they copy pasted it from somewhere. Or if they copied it in there and then they went in and made little changes. Writing sessions, in my document, I can see that I was in here 115 times. Active writing time was almost 3.5 hours. Then I could do details. I can see all the large copy pastes. And then here's a crazy one. If that's not enough to get the context clues of if they actually worked it or if they just copy pasted it in there, show drafting process replay. With this, I can actually watch and then I can speed it up. I can watch the creation of this document either in real time or sped up a little bit. See, watch, you're watching me type into this document from years ago. Like literally, I wrote this in here 2019 is when it was 6 years ago, and it's showing me the history of this document. Now, a little heads up, because I always get comments like somebody's like, well, what if the kid just copy paste, they write another doc? Make it part of your rules for your class and put in your policies that whenever you submit a document to them or you make a copy of a document, they have to do all the work in that document. Okay, cool. Then the best they can do maybe is go into ChatGPT, have it write it, and then they do the voice thing, and then they like read off of ChatGPT onto the paper. Cool. That's at least they read it and slowed down, and hopefully they catch a few things and actually learn something. There are always going to be ways for students to cheat. This is not new. People have been cheating since the beginning of time. But this is a tool to help us see what this looks like and how it's created to help us get context clues on whether or not a student, copy paste this thing over. So those are my thoughts. In the comments, I'd love to know what are some policies or thoughts you have with regards to students cheating. Either something I said that stuck out to you, something you're going to incorporate, or maybe I sparked something that you can use for your class. Throw that in the chat or go ahead and pause the, don't pause, but if you're doing the masterclass at your own pace, go in and write in the notes 3 rules that you want to incorporate using ChatGPT into your classroom policies. And if you want my document, again, tarveracademy.com/resources, and you can just file, make a copy, and then you can change whatever you want on the document. So I'll see you guys here in a second.